Today's text comes from the prophet Isaiah, in chapter 61, beginning with verse 10 and going into chapter 62, verse 3. In your Pew Bible, it is on page 604, 604. Isaiah 61, 10 through 62, 3. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My whole being shall exult in my God. For God has clothed me with the garments of salvation. God has covered me with the robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decks himself with a garland, as a bride adorns herself with jewels, for as the earth brings forth its shoots, and as a garden causes what is sown in it to spring up, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring up before all nations. For Zion's sake I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until her vindication shines out like the dawn, and her salvation like a burning torch. The nations shall see your vindication, and all the kings your glory, and you shall be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will give. You shall be a crown of beauty in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of your God. The word of the Lord. As I was saying earlier, that was kind of a preface to the sermon, my children's moment sharing. This text does not come all by itself. It is not good to take things out of context. That's why often and every week I have the text in context on the board, because it's good to know where it comes from and how it was said before we put what we believe and what we feel into it. And this text comes at a time when the people of Israel had been in exile. As I've said many times before, the Old Testament is written in one of three places. Either the people of Israel are about to go into exile, the people of Israel are in exile, or the people of Israel are coming back from exile. Most of the Old Testament and the prophets are written in that perspective, or from that perspective, where people are either going, they're in, or they're coming from exile. This Isaiah passage is part of the coming out of exile. The people are rejoicing because they are coming back from a foreign land. They're coming back from what had been, from feeling that God had abandoned them. They come to this time to celebrate. And that's why our text today in 61 doesn't just begin where the text that we read now is, but instead it starts with the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And if you all remember, this is also the definition of the gospel message, isn't it? To bring good news to those who are oppressed, to help bind up the brokenhearted, to bring liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners. But it's also a celebration because we proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And in the Old Testament, in the law, that favor was called the year of Jubilee. It was a celebration year. And oh, how we would love to have a year of Jubilee. Let me explain it just a little bit. The original concept of the year of Jubilee was every 50 years, there would be a year when all would be forgiven. Meaning, all of your debts would be forgiven. Those who were enslaved would be free. Those who were indentured servants would no longer have to be. Those who had taken your land are now required to give it back to you. It was truly a year in which the Lord would renew everything. Wouldn't that be awesome? Student loans forgiven. Credit card debts gone. There is almost no proof of this actually happening in the Bible. This was a concept that God had brought forth during the time of the Exodus and when they were coming into the Promised Land. It was a way in which God wanted the people to be, but yet the difficulty in this was so extreme that there is no context in which they truly celebrate a real Jubilee. The Jubilee is a God thing. It is a year of celebration, a year of freedom, but it isn't just for that year. It is the year of freedom. From there forward, everything starts over. Everything is renewed. Everything begins again. The year of the Lord's favor begins. May 18 be that year for us. Also in the text before our text, to put it in more context, we have verse 8 that says, "For I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery and wrongdoing. I will faithfully give them their recompense, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them." We come to our text today celebrating that God is God in this world, that God has not abandoned us. The people of Israel, when this was written, were finally seeing God moving once again. In the Old Testament, or in old times, ancient times I should say, when one country conquered another, it meant that my God was stronger than your God. And therefore, your God, your little God, is destroyed, and you come with me. You are now part of my people. I've conquered you. But yet for Israel, and we see this even to this day, that wherever the Jewish people have gone, they have not lost their culture or beliefs. It was something that was strange, because normally when Babylon went in and took over, all of those people became Babylonian, and they believed in the Babylonian gods, which are the conquering gods and therefore the greater gods. But Israel never fully changed. Yes, some customs become part of the norm, but when it comes to their faith in God, there was always only one God, which is why so many of the Psalms cry out, because David and the other writers felt that God wasn't with them. It wasn't that they wanted to serve another God because this God was better, but that my God, the God, Yahweh, was not here with me. It doesn't feel like it. Where are you? Like it says, I cry out to you. I wait patiently for you. I seek to grow closer. They never let go of that faith. And because of that, God came and freed them from exile. But how does that look for us? For us as Christians, we who believe in this same God, Yahweh, we who believe that God sent Jesus, that God came into our history, we who believe that the Spirit of the Lord is here with us today, how do we hold on to our faith? How do we hold on to what we believe? And I'm not saying that we have to be immovable and stay in the same place and say, this is my faith and forever it'll be exactly the same way. I'm not saying that at all. Because we know that as we grow and mature, things evolve and faith evolves. And I'm saying but do we let go of our faith that easily? God has called us to be transformed. God has called us to be what we were not. For many of us, we may start off as an ugly caterpillar, but yet God envelops us and takes us into God's arms, God's healing process, and we come out as ugly caterpillars with wings. Now beautiful because of the color of our wings, because we remained faithful to God. We were transformed in the vision of God, in how God sees us. we are able to do just that. To live out life in a perspective, in a way that God truly shines through. And I say perspective because sometimes it is our perspective that either helps us to grow closer or it denies us from moving from where we are. And it's more than just being a positive or a negative person, because often we say that, I don't want to be around this person because they're very negative and I feel the negative vibes, or I want to be next to them because I feel positive vibes. It's more than positive or negative vibes. It is about how one lives. And I was listening to some preachers on YouTube this week, and one of them was Leo McDaniels, I believe it was, and he told a story, and I wanted to share that story because I thought it was very interesting and relevant to our day, even today. It's a story about two buckets and a well. In this story, the two buckets are hanging out by the well, and the one bucket says, "Man, I hate being far from the well, because every time I come up, they take all of my water, and I'm left with nothing." And the other bucket smiles and says, "Really?" And the first bucket says, "Yeah, I hate being empty. And every time I come out, I'm empty. They take all my water and I'm left with nothing." Greedy people. And the second bucket smiled again and said, "Let me tell you how I see this. I love when they come and drink my water. I love it because they take my water and they're not thirsty anymore. But I love being empty even more because I know that soon I'm going to go back into the well and get filled up once again." Isn't that a way to see life? Too often we think about the people who take from us and that we give, and we complain because all they do is take. But yet we don't realize that the more we give, the more we get from God. Instead of focusing on what people are taking or what you are giving, maybe it's time that you think about how much God has provided for you and how you are able to give because of what God has given you, because you are able to go back into the well, because you are able to go back into the water and get filled up once again, and then come back up and you are able to give water to those who are thirsty. And when you are empty, guess what? Soon, you'll be back down in the water, being filled up once again. That's how we should look at life. When we feel that we have given our all, we have to know that we are growing closer to God, and God is filling us. God is renewing us. God's Spirit is pouring out upon us so that we can continue to give and continue to receive from God. It's a matter of perspective. If you feel like you're just giving, you're forgetting that you're getting in order to give. It's time that maybe as this new year begins, maybe we should focus on the things that we have received, the fact that we continue to receive, and the more that we give and the less that we need. God continues to provide. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, well, sometimes also we see a picture and we see something and we wonder, is it on the up and up or is it going down? Like when we look at this picture, is this a sunrise or is it a sunset? As we contemplate that, I want us to think about our new and coming year. Do we want it to be a year of sunrises, a year of new hope, a year of giving and knowing that we will go down into the well and get refilled once again? Or are we going into the new year as a setting sun, where we're complaining about being empty and all that we've given and forgetting about all that we have received. My prayer for this day and for this coming year is that God help us to see all of these suns as sun risings. And may we remember that though we may give and be empty at this moment, that soon we will be filled once again with the water that comes from the well of Jesus, the living water that provides for us, for those around us, and those who are yet to come. Reminding us that when we give of what God has given us, we receive more and more in order to give more and more. Now let us sing